You just keep costing me money. That's it, we're getting a divorce. I'll let you have the kid, but as property division, you need to pay me $80,000. The moment I arrived home, my husband John suddenly announced that he wanted a divorce. I had supported him tirelessly throughout our marriage. I couldn't believe he'd suddenly said such a thing. However, I tried to calm down my anger. I replied to him in the calmest tone I could muster. I understand. John seemed surprised by my calm response, but it's too late for regrets now. From this point on, he'll have to pay the price for what he's done. My name is Sarah, and I'm 25 years old. I work at a hotel's front desk. Last year, I married John, who was my boss at work, and found out I was pregnant at the beginning of this year. I quit my job to focus solely on homemaking and childcare. Our newborn son cries almost every night and struggles with feeding. Though I was overwhelmed with my first experience of parenting, John was always there to support me. But suddenly, John started acting like a completely different person. Even though he used to help actively with household chores and child rearing, something seemed off with him lately. I don't need dinner tonight. I'll be late due to work commitments. Even though you're not in sales, it seems the head waiter position has a lot of engagements. It must be tough. Having a leadership position means that I have to communicate even if it's with a different department. I should get going now. When I used to work, there were seldom any weekend drinking parties. Moreover, as the head of the restaurant division, John only had monthly leadership meetings, which took place during work hours. The idea of John attending after-work drinking parties after our son was born seemed unimaginable. But recently, him coming home late has started to feel like the new normal. I tried to convince myself that the company's circumstances must have changed. However, one particular incident made me suspicious of John. I'm home. Is the bath ready? Welcome home. Yes, the bath is ready. When John returned, he was unusually cheerful. Despite apparently drinking, he didn't seem drunk at all. This made me uneasy. Usually you can't hold your liquor that well. But tonight you don't seem drunk at all? Oh, I didn't drink much today. His hasty reply to my casual question and the absence of any alcohol smell replaced by the scent of a woman's perfume. It was a shock for me. John would usually have a drink as soon as he got home, but that day was different. His immediate desire to take a bath made me feel something was off. You usually come home dead drunk, but tonight is different. Today, I didn't end up sitting next to the sales manager, so I didn't drink much. Stop nagging? You should just focus on things at home. When people lie, they often involuntarily express it through their behavior or speech. As for John, his lies are typically expressed as aggression. The moment I heard that, I was convinced he was hiding something. Later, when he said he was going out for drinks, he started returning home even later. Eventually, he began coming home the next morning. John is definitely hiding something. I became firmly convinced of this when John returned home in the morning without even sleeping and tried to head off to work. John, you forgot your phone. It was unusual for the typically organized John to forget his phone on the sofa. As I picked it up contemplating whether to bring it to him, John rushed back home in a panic. Seeing me with his phone, he snatched it with a look of disdain. What are you doing? Don't touch my phone without permission. You seem to have forgotten it, so I was just thinking if I should bring it to you. Shut up. Don't tell me you looked through it. As John quickly put his phone in his chest pocket, he glared at me with contempt. From his gaze, I could tell he was hiding something. It was clear that he had something on his phone he didn't want me to see, confirming he was hiding something. I suspected it might be about another woman. I refrained from confronting him right then, fearing he might erase any evidence. Why would I look? I wouldn't do such a thing. Don't act so high and mighty. Do you even realize how much I've done for you? Think about your position before you speak. To assert dominance, John slammed his bag onto the desk. The loud noise in his shouting was clearly meant to intimidate and control me. If it were just the two of us, I might argue back and leave the house. But with our son present, things were different. There's a possibility that John might become physically violent out of frustration. For now, I had no choice but enduring. All I could think about was gathering evidence calmly. Trying to contain my anger, I clenched my fists so hard they hurt. Suddenly, our son began to cry from the other room as if my emotions connected to him. He probably woke up and felt uneasy without me around. "Ah, seriously? He's so loud. Go put him back to sleep." At John's shouting, my body jolted in fear. In his current state, he might even resort to violence. I never imagined our marriage would come to this. But when I looked back, there were several signs that things were off. When we first got married, John insisted on cleaning after every toilet use and was particular about dishes never piling up in the sink. He emphasized doing dishes right after cooking. I was always the one cleaning up after him. I remember that we nearly had a big argument when he said shoes should be cleaned regularly. My household chores increased compared to when I was living with my parents. In addition, with our son, John's support became less and less. Sometimes I questioned the meaning behind our marriage. My mental state was at its limit, feeling as though I was being treated as a mere housemaid. During these trying times, a turning point arrived. "Hey, what's this?" It was an event a month after I started investigating John's secret. When our son finally fell asleep and I was taking a moment to relax, John suddenly confronted me with a picture. The picture showed me having a tea party, looking cheerful with my former colleagues. "So while I'm working hard, you're out having fun. Where did you get the money for this?" "I just needed a break after finishing all the housework." "What's the problem? Where'd you get the money?" "Don't waste the money I earn." John seemed to mistakenly believe I had misused our living expenses. Without listening to my side of the story, he angrily accused me. His loud voice woke up our son, who began crying loudly. A tense atmosphere quickly filled the house. "Shut up. Stop crying." Even though our son was crying in the bedroom, John looked like he was about to barge in and shout at him. I instinctively stood in front of the door, spreading my arms wide and glaring at John. I'm ready to block his path. "What the hell are you doing? Move out of the way." "No, I won't move. Do you even realize what you're about to do? Yelling at a newborn baby? That's not normal." These past few days made me realize our relationship had no happy future. I suddenly felt the urge to leave the house immediately. I was well prepared to do so. Now, the only thing left was to gather enough money to support my son and me. As of now, I wasn't in a position to raise my son all by myself. To earn a living, I had to find a job. And to avoid John noticing, I had to secretly look for work in a completely unrelated field. While I was deep in thought, John roughly shoved me aside, forcefully opening the door and hurled hurtful words at me. "You're so annoying. Get out right now. I don't need a disrespectful, useless wife like you who can't even show me normal respect. Hurry up and pack your things." "What? Why are you suddenly saying this? You can't just spring this on me. Just leave already. You're so irritating. You squander the money I earn and you don't even apologize. Rather, you have the nerve to act all high and mighty. Take the kid and get out of my sight." John loudly berated me, throwing my belongings outside the front door. He forcefully handed me our crying son and shut the door. He locked it and even put it on the chain. I was now locked out without a way back in. Now I'm with my infant son and I found myself homeless. In the quiet late-night alley, only the sad cries of my son echoed. "I'm so sorry. I'm a failure as a mother for putting you through this." To avoid causing any disturbances and potential reports from neighbors, I went into a park. Holding my little son close, I tried to comfort him. "I'm here with you. It's going to be okay." I held him close to keep him warm, reassuring him. As dawn approached, I planned to seek help from City Hall or some other institution. But then, it started to rain. Without even an umbrella, I could only hug my son tight to protect him from the rain. As I felt tears mingling with the raindrops on my face, I deeply regretted not leaving John before our son was born. It was past 3 in the morning when an elderly, well-dressed man kindly offered me his umbrella, protecting my son and me from the rain. "What happened that you're out here with a baby at this hour? He must live in a grand apartment near the park. The constant cries of my son probably alarmed him, prompting him to check on us. Although it might be strange to trust a stranger in a park late at night, I felt an odd sense of familiarity from the old man. His kindness warmed my heart. I shared the evening's painful events, and without uttering a word, he gently dried my hair with a towel. "Come stay at my house for now. I have female staff members who can take care of you. It would be tough for the baby to spend a night out here in the cold." His compassionate words and gentle voice brought tears to my eyes again. Taking up his kind offer, I walked into his home with my crying son. What followed was a shocking revelation that I could never have anticipated. "Leave everything to me now and get some rest." After receiving kind words from the elderly man, I decided to get some sleep. The live-in staff were incredibly caring and kind, ensuring my son was well looked after without showing any hint of annoyance at our unexpected arrival. Thanks to their help, I was able to get a good night's sleep. When I woke up, it was already past noon. One of the female staff members informed me that my phone had been ringing multiple times. She hadn't wanted to disturb my much-needed rest, so she chose not to wake me up. While I was grateful for her kindness, I checked my phone and saw numerous missed calls from John as I expected. No doubt he was selfishly demanding that I come home and prepare his breakfast. At this point, I couldn't see him as anything but the epitome of a terrible husband. I regretted ever falling for someone like him. I didn't want to return, but ignoring him and risking police involvement could complicate things. I decided to go home with my son and confront John. Little did I know, a fierce battle between John and me was about to commence. "Where the hell were you? Leaving the house a mess and not even making breakfast? Where do you think you were after our silly argument last night?" Suppressing the urge to retort sarcastically, I stayed silent and endured his rant. "I couldn't get in because the door chain was locked. Your breakfast is none of my business. If you can't even make your own breakfast, you shouldn't have chased me out in the first place. Aren't you smarter than me?" John always belittled me. If he were truly smart, he wouldn't have put us in this predicament. I hoped he'd realize that he brought this upon himself. His anger peaked as he slammed a piece of paper onto the living room table. "I've had enough. I can't deal with you anymore." On the table lay a filled out and stamped divorce form, likely prepared by John in his rage. He probably expected me to apologize, but I had no intention of playing into his hands. Without hesitation, I signed and stamped the divorce form. "Understood. Playing tough. You're jobless and have no one to turn to. What are you planning to do?" Despite his provocations, I could sense his unease. His mouth revealed his panic and cold sweat dampened his forehead. What a foolish man, I thought. Ignoring him, I decided to quickly pack the rest of my belongings. "Can't find any words to say? Well, it doesn't matter. I'll be free from this." I continued packing, ignoring John's words. Then, he dropped a bombshell with a seemingly casual tone. "You just keep costing me money. That's it, we're getting a divorce. I'll let you have the kid, but as property division, you need to pay me $80,000. His audacious demand was likely prompted by my calm demeanor. He wanted to manipulate my emotions with money. The ploy was obviously laughable. He hoped to drag me into a quarrel, make me feel inferior, and assert his dominance. But I saw through his shallow tactics and responded confidently, "Of course, that's fine." John was taken aback, struggling to find words after my unexpected reply. John, sounding flustered, exclaimed, "Do you even realize what you're saying? $80,000. There's no way you can come up with that amount of money. Don't just brush it off." Sarah calmly responded, "Are you done? I'll transfer the $80,000 by the end of the month. Please handle the rest of the procedures. Goodbye." Subsequently, our divorce went through without a hitch. As promised, I transferred the $80,000 to John's account. I was well aware of his infidelity and had gathered ample evidence against him. However, I didn't bother asking for any compensation. I had no intention of seeking revenge financially. Instead, I planned to make him experience torment far worse than any monetary loss. 2 weeks later, I woke up one morning to find numerous missed calls from John. I had been anticipating this moment. I knew he would call again. As predicted, my phone rang with his incoming call. I ignored the first call and picked up the second. But the moment I hung up immediately and answered at the third call, John was seemingly with rage, yelling at me. "Damn it, are you mocking me?" I felt that answering immediately would just let him steer the conversation. Ignoring the second call was intended to aggravate him further and knock him off balance. His frustration was palpable. If he managed to keep his composure, my plan would fall apart. Hence, hanging up quickly during the second call was a deliberate move to irritate him further. By the third call, I knew he'd be at his breaking point. "Sarah," holding back a smile, "you're so dramatic. I can adjust the volume on my phone, so there's no need to shout. What do you want now? I'm quite busy." I said this while leisurely sipping tea and reading a magazine. In reality, I enjoyed a relaxing day taking care of my son. But I maintained a facade of business for John's sake. "You set me up. What the hell did you do?" Sarah, feigning ignorance. "What are you talking about?" "I have no idea." The truth was, I had taken everything away from John, such as his wife, job, money, family, and everything precious to him. John's voice is cracking. "Stop playing dumb. No one else could have done this. Give everything back. Stop lying." From the other side of the phone, I could almost see him, broken and crying, screaming in despair. The situation was extremely gratifying and I couldn't help but revel in his misery. "Sarah, I was feigning innocence. Can you remind me what I supposedly did? My memory's been a bit hazy lately." While John spiraled into his own hell, I continued to relish my tea and reading time. He then spoke to me in a very soft voice, revealing the truth. Shortly after our divorce, John married his current wife, who was the same woman he had cheated on me with. I knew she was the daughter of a CEO of one of John's most significant clients. Apparently, John had been seeing her behind my back without disclosing his marital status. The day he proposed the divorce, he found out she was pregnant. Given her position as the daughter of an influential business partner, he felt compelled to divorce me promptly and marry her. Pushed into a corner, John thought he had ensured my downfall by proceeding with our divorce as planned. But little did he know that this was just the beginning of his nightmare. Today, John's wife abruptly announced their divorce and ousted him from their home. The reason being that she discovered the truth about his previous marriage to me. Furthermore, learning about the existence of our child enraged her. She threatened divorce and demanded compensation. John panicked, retaliated, and verbally assaulted her. A huge commotion ensued, with even his in-laws intervening. His mental and physical torment of his wife led to her reporting him to his company, resulting in his dismissal. His boss frankly stated, "Our clients are more important than you." In a single day, John lost both his wife and his job. Moreover, the financial damages from this ordeal meant he had to use up the entire $80,000 I had transferred to him, plus more from his personal savings, to settle compensation claims with his company and his wife. John shouted, "How does she know about our marriage? You must be behind this. You've taken everything from me." John seemed to be lashing out in desperation. I stopped reading my magazine and decided to face him head-on. Seeing that he still showed no signs of remorse, I felt a strong revulsion towards him. I initially intended to quickly end the conversation, but I could no longer tolerate John's inability to comprehend the magnitude of his actions. Sarah retorted, "You blame me for taking everything from you? You're the one who brought this upon yourself. From your affair while we were married, to your mistreatment of your wife, to being abandoned by your company, all are the results of your selfish actions." John angrily responded, "Shut up. You're at the bottom, struggling every day, while I worked hard. Despite all your efforts, you're probably struggling to support our child. This is karma for leaving me." John must have misunderstood that I was struggling, working multiple jobs. Holding up the magazine I was reading, I sarcastically replied, "I was just engrossed in this beauty magazine. Now I'm thinking of enjoying my second cup of tea and maybe some knitting." John was nearly screaming, "What? Stop mocking me. Enough is enough." I could almost visualize his face turning red with rage over the phone. As I imagined this, I couldn't help but burst into laughter, further infuriating him. Sarah, maintaining her composure, replied, "Do whatever you want. But I've told my staff not to let any outsiders in." John, confused, asked, "Staff?" Sarah clarified, "Yes. I'm currently living in an apartment with my father and son." Switching the call to video mode, I decided to drop the bombshell. John was in utter shock, exclaimed, "Why is the chairman there?" On screen was the elderly man who had saved me, also the chairman of John's former company, and unbeknownst to him, my father. The truth finally dawned on John, unraveling the grand twist of fate. Father greeted, "Bah, John, it's not our first meeting, is it? Let me introduce myself again. I'm Sarah's father." John, visibly shaken, stammered, "Sarah's father? But, Mr. Chairman, I don't understand." Sarah had previously told John that she was fatherless, so he was understandably taken aback. I could easily imagine the panic in his eyes. Father explained, "Actually, Sarah's mother and I separated when she was pregnant with her. It seems they were an unlikely couple. My father being the heir to a financial empire and my mother, a regular office worker. When they announced their intention to marry, my grandmother vehemently opposed it, causing an uproar in the family. Although my father was disinherited, their marriage was never approved. Knowing this, my mother chose to leave him and I was born with his name. But he was absent. To avoid tarnishing the family name, they agreed to recognize me as his child and he sent monthly child support." Father continued, "After my mother passed away some years ago, I desired to meet Sarah but held back. She was raised believing I was dead. I felt it was cruel to tell a young child that her father abandoned her. When my mother died last year, she entrusted my care to my father. He had always been concerned about me." Father remarked, "I knew she married you, but I was truly shocked seeing her weeping, drenched in rain outside my house that night." John queried, "You spent that night at the chairman's residence?" Sarah replied, "Yes, he found us in a park late at night and took us in." Sarah glared at John through the video call, and her father gently placed a hand on her shoulder in support. Sarah smirked, "You thought I was living a poor, desperate life? Sorry to disappoint, but I'm currently heading my father's company with a total asset value of $10 million. I'm not petty enough to fret over $80,000. This was the reality. The reason I could demand and pay such a large amount without hesitation was that my father had shared this truth with me after taking us in that night. Father had said, "Don't worry about money, even if you decide to divorce. I will handle everything. Think of yourself and our child first. You're the precious gem your mother left behind. I will always protect you. Trust me." Because of these words, I could confidently pay John the $80,000 he demanded without a second thought. I later informed the daughter of a CEO, who was John's next wife, of his deceit and misconduct. Given that my father had a long-standing business relationship with her father, it was easy to reveal John's true nature, which led to their divorce. John stammered, "So all this time I was in the dark." Sarah retorted, in simpler words, "You were just a pawn in our game. Do you finally get it, genius?" With a sarcastic smile, Sarah watched as John seemed to crumble, struggling to find words. In the end, faced with the overwhelming truth, John had no choice but to bow out. Thus, our turbulent battle with him came to a close. John never showed his face to us again. A few years later, our son started elementary school. We cherished our time together, and I led a fulfilling life both professionally and personally. Our kind staff treated us warmly, and we felt the warmth of a family every day, living blissfully,